My name is Nathan Cole. I'm 37 years old, and for 11 years I was a firefighter in Knoxville, Tennessee. And for the last 3 years, I've been a building inspector for the same city, which means I spend my days walking through structures and reading what they're trying to tell me about themselves. The difference between the two jobs is smaller than people think. Both of them are about paying attention to what a building is doing when no one's looking. I want to be clear about something before I tell you what happened on a Thursday afternoon in September. I was not a hero. I was a man who used to run into burning buildings for a living, who happened to be driving down Meridian Street when a house caught fire, and who did the thing that 11 years of training had made into something close to reflex. I pulled over. I went in. I came out with a woman I had never met. That part lasted about 4 minutes. What came after lasted considerably longer. The fire was visible from 2 blocks away, not flames yet from that distance, just the particular quality of smoke that tells you something is wrong rather than something is burning. I've been reading smoke since I was 24 years old, and this smoke was reading wrong. Too dark, moving too fast, coming from a window on the second floor of a narrow Victorian on a street of narrow Victorians. I pulled over, called 911, got out of the truck. There were neighbors on the sidewalk, 3 of them, a woman with a phone pressed to her ear already making the same call I just made, an older man in a cardigan who had the expression of someone watching something he can't stop, and a teenage boy who looked like he'd been about to ride past on a bicycle and had stopped without fully deciding to. None of them said anything when I walked toward the house. The woman with the phone reached out like she was going to stop me, then didn't. The front door was unlocked. That's the thing that gets people. They forget about the door. In a fire, in a panic, in the particular frozen clarity of an emergency, people forget the simplest exit is usually still there. The smoke inside was heavier than the outside had suggested, which told me the fire was moving faster upstairs than the visible evidence indicated. I had no gear, no tank, no mask, no protection beyond the fact that I knew how to move through a burning building without using it up on the wrong things. I dropped low. The air near the floor was breathable. I moved toward the stairs. I found her in the second-floor studio. She was on the floor near the window, not unconscious, not quite, but in the specific reduced state that smoke inhalation produces before the body makes its final decision about what it's going to do. She had one hand still pressed flat against a sketchbook she'd apparently been trying to reach or save, and she was looking at the smoke-thickened air above her with the focused concentration of someone who is working very hard on the problem of staying awake. "Hey," I said, and crouched down, and looked at her. She looked at me. Her eyes, green, lighter than I'd have expected, the color of the river on a clear day, found my face and held it with an effort that was visible. "Hey," she said back. Her voice was rough from the smoke. "Can you walk?" "I don't know," she said, which was more honest than most people manage in that situation. "We're going to find out," I said. I got her up. She could walk, with help, unsteady, coughing but moving. I kept myself between her and the smoke, down the stairs, which were intact, through the front room, out the door. The fire department arrived 90 seconds after we came out. I know because I counted while I was keeping her on the sidewalk and making sure she was breathing. Old habit. Time always matters. The paramedics took her. I gave a statement to the first firefighter on scene, a woman named Carla, who I recognized from a department event 2 years ago, who looked at me with the particular expression of people who know this specific kind of situation, where a civilian has done something they shouldn't have had to do, and is now standing on the sidewalk with singed eyebrows and a story. "You all right?" Carla said. "Fine," I said. "You should get checked out." "I know," I said, and did. The hospital was a formality. My lungs were fine. My eyes were irritated. My forearms had 2 small burns that neither the paramedic nor the ER nurse seemed particularly concerned about. I was cleared in 40 minutes, given some cream for the burns, and told I'd probably have a headache for a day or two from the smoke. I was filling out paperwork at the discharge desk when a nurse found me. "Are you the one who brought in the woman from the Meridian Street fire?" she said. "Yes," I said. "She's asking for you," the nurse said. "She's awake. She's stable. She's been asking since she came around." The nurse had the specific diplomatic expression of someone delivering information that is slightly outside the normal parameters of their job. "She said she knows you." I looked at the nurse. "I don't know her," I said. "I'd never met her before today." "She knows," the nurse said. "She still wants to talk to you." The room was on the 3rd floor, a standard recovery room with the fluorescent dimmed, and a monitor keeping its quiet rhythm and the smell that hospital rooms have, which is the smell of things being taken seriously. She was propped slightly up against the pillow. The oxygen tube was gone. Her hair, which had been pulled back from her face during the fire, was loose now, red against the white pillow, and she had the washed-out look of someone who has been through something and is on the other side of it, slightly hollowed, more present than before. She looked at me when I came in. The recognition in her face was immediate and specific, not the recognition of someone who has been told who I am, but the recognition of someone seeing something they already knew was coming. "I know you," she said. Her voice was still rough, but steadier. "You were in my dream last night." I stood at the doorway. "I don't think we've met," I said, carefully, not dismissively, just honestly. "We haven't," she said. "That's the part I can't explain." I came into the room, sat in the chair beside the bed, because standing felt wrong, like I was prepared to leave. I wasn't prepared to leave. "Tell me," I said. She looked at the ceiling for a moment. The monitor kept its rhythm. Outside the window, Knoxville was doing what it does in September, which is deciding whether it's still summer. "I dream clearly," she said. "I always have, since I was a child. Not the vague kind, specific, detailed, like something that happened rather than something imagined. And I draw them. I have since art school. I wake up and I draw before I do anything else, before I'm fully awake, because if I wait even 20 minutes, the edges start to blur." "Last night," I said. "Last night I dreamed about a man in a field," she said. "There was smoke, or fog, I couldn't tell which. He was turned away at first, and then he turned around, and I woke up." She looked at me directly. "Your face, your hands, the way you move." She paused. "I drew it this morning, before I started working." I looked at her hands, which were resting on the blanket. The left one had a bandage on the back, a burn, small, from whatever had happened before I found her. "The sketchbook," I said. I'd seen it in the studio, seen her hand on it. "It burned," she said. "Almost all of it." A pause. "The page I drew on this morning was the last page. The back cover protected it." Her voice went slightly quieter. "The paramedic found it on the sidewalk. He gave it to me before they loaded me in." She reached to the small table beside the bed and picked up something, a single page, torn free from a spiral binding, slightly curled at the edges, with the smell of smoke in it still. She held it out to me. I looked at it for a long moment before I took it. Graphite. Fast lines. The kind you make when you're capturing something before it dissolves. Loose and specific at once, the way good drawing is. A field. Fog or smoke at the edges. A figure, broad-shouldered, turned away. And then the figure turning, and the lines that suggested a face, a jaw, the set of a head and shoulders. It was me. Or close enough that the distance between the drawing and the fact of me sitting in that chair was something I couldn't account for with anything in my experience. I held the page for a long time. The monitor kept its rhythm. Neither of us said anything. "I'm not a person who believes in things I can't explain," I said finally. "Neither am I," she said. "I design spaces for how people actually move through them. I'm extremely practical. I solve problems. She looked at the page in my hands. I don't have a practical explanation for that. Neither do I said. Something in her face settled, the specific settling of someone who has been carrying an unexplainable thing and has found someone willing to hold it with them without demanding an explanation first. Nathan Cole, I said. Building inspector, former firefighter. Mara Ellis, she said. Painter, extremely flammable studio. I looked at the page one more time, at the field and the fog and the figure that was me before I existed to her. Then I set it carefully on the table beside her, the way you set down something that belongs to someone else and that you've only been trusted to hold for a moment. Tell me about the painting, I said. The one you were working on. She looked at me. Something in her expression shifted. The wariness that had been there since I walked in, careful and watchful, loosened slightly. Why? She said. Because you were trying to save it, I said. When I found you, your hand was on the sketchbook. You were going for the sketchbook instead of the door. I looked at the bandage on her hand. Something was in there that mattered more than the exit. She looked at her hand. The painting was on the other side of the room, she said. I couldn't have gotten to it anyway. The book was just... She stopped, started again. I'd been working on something for 3 months. The sketches for it were in that book. All of them. She looked at the ceiling. Burned now. What was it? I said. She was quiet for a moment. A series, she said. About fog. What you can see inside it and what you can't. How things look different when the edges are gone. Not worse, just different. Sometimes more true. She looked at the page on the table. I kept dreaming about fog. I kept trying to paint what was in the fog that I couldn't quite see. A pause. Apparently, I was getting closer than I knew. She was discharged 2 days later. I know because I called the hospital on the second day, not the first, because the first day felt too soon, and not the third, because the third might have been too late. The second day felt like the honest day. I introduced myself to the nurse who answered as the person who'd brought her in. The nurse checked and said Ms. Ellis had been discharged that morning. I said thank you. I hung up, and then I sat in my truck in the hospital parking lot for about 10 minutes, which I hadn't done in a long time, sitting still without going anywhere, without a reason for the stillness, except that I needed it. I'd spent 11 years running into burning buildings. I'd carried people out of structures I wasn't supposed to be in. I'd done the work that needs doing when the work is in front of you, and I'd learned not to think too long about the part after. You go in, you come out, you hand them to the paramedics and you give your statement, and you go home. This was the first time I'd wanted to know what happened next. I found her through the fire department, not through any official channel. I called Carla, the firefighter from the scene, and said I was trying to locate the woman from the Meridian Street house to check in. Carla said she'd see what she could do. 2 days later, Carla texted me an address with a note that said simply, "Be decent about this." I was. The address was a temporary rental, a small apartment in the Bearden neighborhood, the kind of place you end up when your home is being assessed for fire damage, and you need somewhere to put yourself in the meantime. I stood at the door with a sketchbook I'd bought at a store on the way over, spiral-bound, the same format as the one she'd lost, 60 pages of good paper. I debated bringing something else. The sketchbook had seemed right. The sketchbook was practical, and Mara Ellis was, by her own account, extremely practical. She opened the door. She looked at me. At the sketchbook. "Building inspector," she said. "Former firefighter," I said. She looked at the sketchbook for a moment longer. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I know," I said. "The one you lost had 3 months of sketches in it." "It did," she said. "You can't replace that," I said, "but you can start the next 3 months." Something moved across her face. She took the sketchbook, turned it over in her hands. How did you find me? She said. Carla, I said. The firefighter from the scene. She told me to be decent about it. Are you being decent about it? I'm working on it, I said. She almost smiled. The same almost smile from the hospital, held back, assessing. And then she stepped aside. Coffee? She said. Yeah, I said. Please. We talked for 2 hours. Not about the fire, not directly, not at first. We talked about the work, which for both of us turned out to be the same thing as talking about ourselves, which is how it goes with people for whom the work isn't separate from the person doing it. She told me about the Fog series, about the 3 months of sketches that were gone now, which she described with the particular flatness of someone who has processed a loss enough to speak about it without performing the grief. She said she'd started them because she kept having the same recurring sense while painting that she was circling something she couldn't quite see. Not a subject exactly, more like a quality of light, a specific thing that happened at the edge of visibility. She'd been trying to capture what's inside the fog. Not what the fog hides, but what it reveals about looking, about the particular attention you bring when your usual landmarks are gone. When everything is clear, she said, you look for what's interesting. When there's fog, you look for what's real. I thought about that, about reading smoke from 2 blocks away, and what it looked like when smoke was telling you something, versus when it was telling you nothing, about the way a burning building reveals its structure, what's actually holding it together, versus what was just covering the parts that matter. I know what you mean, I said. She looked at me. You do. In a fire, I said. The fog, the smoke, it strips the building down to what it actually is. You find out which walls are real and which ones were just making the rooms look right. You find out where the weight actually sits. I looked at my coffee. Most buildings hold together better than you'd think. Some of them fall apart faster than you'd believe. The smoke shows you which is which. She looked at me for a long moment. That's exactly what I'm trying to paint, she said. The showing which is which. I told her about the 11 years, about what you learn from burning buildings that you don't learn anywhere else, that structures fail in predictable patterns, that the thing that looks solid often isn't, and that the thing that looks like nothing is sometimes the only thing holding everything together. I told her about the switch to inspection, which most people read as a step down, and which I'd made because I wanted to prevent the fires rather than fight them. She listened with the complete attention of someone who doesn't perform listening. Do you miss it? She said. The running in part. I thought about it honestly. Sometimes, I said. The certainty of it. When you're inside and the job is exactly what it is, and there's no ambiguity about what needs to happen next. I looked at the coffee. The rest of my life has more ambiguity. Most things do, she said. Yes, I said. Most things do. She looked at the sketchbook on the table between us, then at me. I'm going to start over, she said. The series. I was thinking about it last night. I don't have the sketches, but I remember what I was trying to do, and maybe... She paused. Maybe what I was trying to do has changed a little. What I can see inside the fog. What changed? I said. She looked at me steadily, the green eyes in the apartment light. I used to think the fog was hiding something, she said. Now I think it might be showing me something I wasn't ready to see yet. I held that for a moment. What are you ready to see? I said. She picked up the sketchbook, turned it over, set it down. I don't know yet, she said. That's why I have to draw it. We sat in the silence that came after that, which was the comfortable kind, the kind that means something has been said that was worth saying and doesn't need anything added to it. She started the new series the following week. I know because she sent me a photograph of the first sketch, not the finished thing, not a painting, just a pencil drawing on the first page of the new sketchbook, loose and searching, the way her work looked in the beginning before it found its shape. A figure in fog, turned away, then turning. The message with it said, "First page. Thought you should see it." I looked at the photograph for a long time, at the figure that was beginning to turn around, at the fog at the edges that was the same fog she'd been painting toward for months, and which I now understood she'd been painting toward in a direction she hadn't known was a direction, until the sketchbook saved itself, and one page with my face on it came back to her on a sidewalk. I typed back, "It's good." She replied, "It's a beginning." And then, after a pause, "Are you free Saturday? I want to see the Meridian Street house. The fire inspector cleared it yesterday. I need to see what's left." I understood what she was asking. Not for an escort, exactly. For company. For someone who had also been inside it and knew what it had looked like when it was on fire, and could stand beside her now in the version that had come after. I typed, "I'll drive." The house on Meridian Street had the particular look of a place that has been through something and is in the process of deciding whether to continue. The fire had taken the second-floor studio almost entirely, the room where I'd found her, the window she'd been near, the wall she'd painted on for 2 years. The rest of the structure was intact, damaged by smoke and water, but standing, the bones of it sound enough that the inspector's report had said salvageable with significant work. She stood on the sidewalk and looked at it for a long time without going in. I stood beside her and let her look. "I built that studio myself," she said. "I mean, I had contractors, but I designed the light. Every window is placed for a specific kind of afternoon light." She looked at the second-floor window, which had a board over it now. "It took me 8 months to get it right." "It can be rebuilt," I said. "I know," she said. "That's not what I'm thinking about." "What are you thinking about?" She was quiet for a moment. "I'm thinking about the fact that I was reaching for the sketchbook instead of the door," she said. "And that you found me that way." She looked at me. "And that one page survived." A pause. "I'm thinking about what that says about what I was trying to hold on to, and whether I want to keep holding on to it the same way." I thought about this, about what it meant to design a space around a specific light, and then watch the space burn, and then stand on the sidewalk of it and consider what you were going to do next. "The light's still the same," I said. "The windows are gone, but the light doesn't change." She looked at me. "No," she said, "it doesn't." "You can rebuild the windows for the same light," I said. "You know exactly where they need to go." She looked at the house, at the boarded-up window, at the Victorian lines of the structure that had survived, because the bones of it were honest, load-bearing where it needed to be, open where it could afford to be, the same thing that makes old houses worth saving. "I'm going to rebuild it," she said, not like a question, not to me exactly, more like something she was confirming to herself by saying out loud. "I know," I said. She looked at me. "You sound certain." "I've read a lot of buildings," I said. "This one wants to keep going." We stood there for a while longer. The September afternoon was doing what September afternoons do in Tennessee, warm enough to be comfortable, cool enough to feel like something is almost changing. A neighbor came past with a dog and nodded at us without slowing down, which is a Tennessee skill, the ability to acknowledge without intruding. At some point, Mara's hand found mine on the sidewalk between us. Not a gesture, just a fact. Her fingers closed around mine, and neither of us acknowledged it or made anything of it. We just stood there holding hands in front of a burned house, looking at the place where something had been, and thinking about what was going to be there instead. I didn't know what that was yet. Neither did she. But I knew the fog was lifting, and I knew I was the figure inside it, and I knew that for the first time in 3 years, I was standing somewhere that felt like exactly where I was supposed to be. Some things you run toward because training tells you to, Some things you run toward because something older than training does the deciding. I ran toward both. I'm still there.